fakes and phonies enjoy a long life of luxury while they spread corruption throughout the country. When they should be arrested, they're protected and respected in the society and in a million different
22 minutes before 8 o'clock, and we have shots of the Beetham Highway, the Churchill Roosevelt Highway. That is in the vicinity of the Central Market. Folks heading towards the lighthouse, and of course at the traffic light you're going to find a little congestion. But what I've noticed is that just before the traffic light there is good movement of the traffic, so there's no need to be jumping lanes and so on. Just be patient and you will get there in time. You can't expect to get to somewhere in a shorter space of time than the traffic will allow. Please stay off the emergency shoulders, Mr. Hilux. All right, welcome back. Well, with Labor Day fast approaching, the Oilfield Workers Trade Union wants government to settle its $600 million debt to T&TEC. The union says for the past decade, the state-owned company has been operating at a loss and does not want it to suffer the same fate as Petrotrin. Mr. Burke is here, Vice President of the OWTU T&TEC branch. He joins us on set now. Brother Burke, welcome.
Good morning to you and the listening public, viewing public.
This issue with the sums owed to T&TEC, what impact is it having on T&TEC's overall operations?
Well, operating in a high debt situation is never good for any enterprise.
Yes.
What is happening? The state never allows the enterprises to accumulate capital. Mm-hmm. Right now, the T&TEC Act is very clear. It states that the Commission should earn the enough surplus mm-hmm. to meet its operating expenses as well as fund its own capital development.
Correct.
Works. Now, the state has been facilitating the floating of this act, and because of that, T&TEC finds itself running at overdraft, and it's not able to meet its responsibilities to the workers. Now, the state does, in fact, fund some capital development works. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when you have new infrastructure or new load centers, you have to pay the light bill. If the state is not paying the light bill for the new infrastructure, mm-hmm. then you put in T&TEC in a more onerous position.
Now, when you speak of the state, let's see if we can break it down a little further. Does that also include what is owed to T&TEC from, say, the local government corporations, the city corporations, and so on?
All the ministries and the enterprises that fall under the ambit of the particular ministry.
Good. So central government for sure, local government, state enterprises.
Yes.
This is the sum of money owed to T&TEC, $600 million.
Yes.
And this has been going on
for a very long time. And what is happening is because of that, T&TEC has not been meeting its responsibilities to its workforce. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, when you hear management, senior management, and politicians speak about workers in state enterprises, they always seem to want to convince the national community the fault is the worker. But we're ignoring the big ticket items, mm-hmm. which the state and senior management are responsible for.
Yes.
In the case of T&TEC, you are the largest customer when you combine all the ministries, and you are also the shareholder.
Yes.
And that shareholding has to be seen in the context that the state is holding T&TEC in trust for the population.
Exactly.
So we are the real owners, but the state is the shareholder. When you do not meet your responsibilities to T&TEC, T&TEC can't run as efficiently as you would like.
Yes.
Luckily for us, T&TEC was established on very firm foundations. And because of the nature of the commodity we sell, there are certain physical and managerial things that we must do to ensure safe supply. So that helps maintain T&TEC as the number one utility in the country.
Yes.
But as everything else, if you are starving the Commission for funds, this reputation and this level of service cannot be sustained.
And that's important, Mr. Burke, because we have a Regulated Industries Act under which the Trinidad and Tobago's Electricity Commission must meet certain benchmarks. But without adequate funding it must be difficult for the Electricity Commission to actually meet those benchmarks, and therefore it may be in contravention of the Regulated Industries Act.
Well, that's a two-edged sword, because the T&TEC Act says how we must operate in terms of finances. For that act to take effect in that regard, you must have rate increases. The rates must reflect the ability to earn a surplus, to meet your expenses, and to meet your capital. The RIC has been very tardy, and I'm not saying that it's their fault. I believe that it's because of political policy in granting these rates in a timely manner. Mm-hmm. So you have a situation where in 2005 there was an award, the last award by the RIC. In 2006, T&TEC was supposed to pick up another $200 million in rate increases. The state directed T&TEC not to accept that $200 million increase, and we haven't had an increase since. So you are, in effect, telling T&TEC you must operate with, and this is the third period, where an increase was supposed to have taken place and has not yet taken place. Right. So T&TEC has been starved for funds. Yet still, we have been performing, and performing well. But at the end of the day, if we don't deal with that, and the debt owed to T&TEC is not the only problem, you know. We have the second cheapest rates in the region, second only to Venezuela. But we have a arrangement called for power purchase agreements, under which we buy bulk power from bulk suppliers.
Under a take or pay arrangement.
Take or pay.
So whether we use it or not,
we have to pay as if we take in all. And that does make economic sense. Secondly, we have to pay for the gas that these entities use. The problem is, if they use the gas in an inefficient manner, we have to pay. And I used the example previously of you renting out a maxi taxi, right? And you are paying for the gas that the maxi taxi uses. Now, if the maxi taxi driver uses the car for work 5 days for the week, you pay for the gas, no problem. But on weekends, he's liming, he's taking his family out, he's taking his partners out.
And you're still paying for the gas.
You're still paying for the gas.
Right.
Right, so there is not something, we don't have the control of the individual machines in these generating facilities. So therefore, they use the gas as they see fit, and we pay for it.
Yeah, but you know, Mr. Burke, when we talk about these things, it is not as though these power generators wrote these contracts themselves. These contracts, these power purchase contracts, were written by the technocrats, whether in the ministry or whether at T&TEC itself, whether at the level of cabinet. These contracts were approved at the highest levels of governance in Trinidad and Tobago. You got to ask yourself, all of these intelligent people saw the economic issues inherent in these clauses in these contracts, but went ahead and still granted these contracts.
Well, you are raising a very, very serious point. We are of the view that when the rounds of privatization started in Trinidad in the late 80s and early 90s, it was driven by the multilateral lending agencies.
Yes, we had to go to them to borrow money.
Right.
Good.
So a lot of these conditionalities
yes.
would have been fostered on the state, and the state wasn't strong enough to insist that these contracts are written so that the privatized company, which the state still maintain an interest in, would have a fair chance of running in a viable manner.
Right.
So the multinationals who would have financed the bulk suppliers got a really sweet deal. In the case of PowerGen, 49% of the generation went at a fraction of the replaceable cost.
Right.
Right? So you spent, the state was not allowed to, T&TEC was not allowed to borrow money to finance the repair of the generating plant. The multinational came to Trinidad, didn't work with a cent, borrowed the money for the for the repair of the plant in the local market,
Yes.
which T&TEC was not allowed to do.
Right.
And they went away laughing to the bank.
Yes.
And the other thing is, the taxpayers must understand, when you have multinational companies operating in your country, yes, they bring development and opportunities for employment, but they expatriate their profits and they invest these profits wherever they see fit, not necessarily in the market that the profits were made.
Correct.
So, in effect, what was happening, we are pauperizing the country because they got the generating plant at bargain prices and then they're exporting the profits.
Right.
They are making large profits, tens of millions of dollars per year. And T&TEC is suffering
In
losses.
a losing position.
So it doesn't make any sense. Then the state is going to say, you know what? The workers not performing, the company being run properly, let's privatize it. Right?
Okay.
And let me draw a parallel with the Petrotrin issue. Petrotrin used to pay for the subsidy in the mean. In 1 year, the subsidy was $7 billion. And the state only gave them back $1.5 billion. So who paid for it? Is the said state enterprise that you closed down. You put these state enterprises in a very disadvantageous position by contract, by policy, and then you say that, it's their fault. And that is a real problem. So we feel very, very strongly that the state has a responsibility to ensure that it meets its obligations. The most important industry in any modern society is the electricity industry. Because whether you generate it through solar, fossil fuel, thermal, wave, wind, whatever, you must have electricity in a modern society.
Yes.
Right? And we take it for granted because we have been, by and large, very efficient.
And it's been relatively cheap for us.
And it is cheap. And that's one of the points that's so sad. The state is not paying its bills, even though the rates are so low.
I hear you. Mr.
Right?
Burke, thank you so much for highlighting this issue, making the people of Trinidad and Tobago aware of these challenges. And I'll continue listening out for further pronouncements from the OWTU in terms of how they advocate for the adjustment of this kind of government approach as far as these state enterprises are concerned.
Well, yes, I really want to insist that population understand that these onerous contracts and the fact that the state is delinquent as a customer really impacts on the ability for the citizenry and the workers to enjoy the fruits of our investment.
Exactly. A particular quality of life was promised.
Exactly.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to run to a quick break, and when we come back, there is at least one more item before we wrap things up today.
Yourself politically paralyzed.